not that a person being interviewed has to get better and better at it because of doing it more often. But you do need to be aware that the people you're dealing with have an agenda. Like I said, they've got a motive. They got a time frame that they got to fit things into. I understand all that, but a lot of times they'll try to influence the audience to their way of thinking or to what they're trying to get across, more so than the person being interviewed. They figure if an interviewer tries to explain themselves or is adamant about what they saw as opposed to what they're being accused of, that they don't want that coming across. But there's so much. I worked in show business, and you get comedians that go out on the stage and make a joke, and the audience laughs because they're expected to laugh, but they don't know what they're laughing at. It's what we used to call an in-house joke. People behind the scenes, people in the wings, they'd just been talking to this comedian before he walked out, and they got this little joke going on their own, and he's referring back to it to the audience. They're laughing because they think it's funny, but they don't know what they're laughing about. And so you find, people's attitude. Like I asked reporters in England why the people in England didn't get upset about all of the black people, all of the British citizens that died at Mount Carmel in 1993. I wrote to all the newspapers, all the magazines, TV stations, never got an answer to any of them. I finally asked a couple of reporters that came over for an interview how this could be, that the people didn't get upset about it. And they finally got back to me with an answer, and they said the attitude of the people in England was, well, if America did this to these people, they must have deserved it. And what's more, most of the ones that died weren't really British anyway. They were from Jamaica or Nigeria or whatever. Even the white people that died at Mount Carmel from England, they wrote them off as, well, they weren't even really British because one of them was born in Hong Kong and one of them was born somewhere else overseas. Not telling the public that these people were the children of service members or government members serving overseas. They write them off as like second-class citizens or citizens of no value. And like I say, when you can spend the time to talk to a reporter or whatever and reason with them and point out some of these things, individually they can agree with you. I've had a lot of reporters, you might say, were very sympathetic, very supportive. But when they get back to the studio, that's all chopped up, cut out or whatever. And so you kind of just wish that people understood all that goes on. Donald Trump says, oh, fake news. It's all fake news, even his own. You know what I'm saying? Fake news is any news that's slanted or given in a wrong light or exaggerated. That's all fake. Now the media need to consider, are we doing the best job we can do? Are we giving the facts to our listening or reading audience and let them decide for themselves, not trying to influence them? You know, during the siege, the government was getting up and telling the press, who was feeding the public, newspapers and TV, one of their big things was how much it was costing every day for the siege. Because the government wanted the public to be upset with how long it was going on. They wanted them to think, oh, we're paying all these millions of dollars, when they'd be paying all those millions of dollars anyway, whether they were sitting in Waco or Timbuktu. You know what I'm saying? The FBI, for instance, don't get paid overtime. They do 12-hour shifts, and then they go home and they're replaced by another team that does a 12-hour shift, and that's their regular pay. It's not like 8 hours regular and four extra hours overtime. And so they're all complaining about the millions it's costing. Well, at Mount Carmel, during the 51 days, the ATF had lied to the governor of Texas, told him we had a drug lab when we didn't, but on the strength of that, she let him have 3 helicopters. The Army was hauled in to provide tanks, which they did for free, maintained for free. I mean, they gassed them up and kept them running. You've got all of these things. The ATF were all living in motels. The wounded that were shot on the first day were taken to local hospitals. The government never tells you that they didn't pay their bills. They want to tell you how much it's costing them every day for this siege. The hospitals and the motels had to threaten to take them to court to get paid for their upkeep, sort of thing. And so, there's just one way of information being twisted to get an effect, make the people mad. Well, why are you letting this go on so long? Why don't you gas them? Why don't you burn them out? Or whatever. They think that it'll happen, fix it in a hurry. And so a lot of the media played into that. The people that wrote the article, The Sinful Messiah, in the Waco Tribune, they painted a picture without interviewing David, without coming out to Mount Carmel and checking as to what was going on or what wasn't going on, what the people thought or anything. They write these articles describing a cult, in their opinion, and their final assessment is somebody needs to do something about this. We need to stop this, you see? And so the people of Waco, it's built into their mind that the paper's reporting it correctly and that we got a problem that needs to be dealt with come hell or high water, sort of thing, even if it means killing people. And in reality, nobody was doing anything out at Mount Carmel. We weren't bothering the neighbors. We weren't robbing banks. We weren't, you know what I'm saying? We were not committing criminal acts to the point of being a threat to Waco or to law enforcement.
Well, let me ask you a question about that, because in the Sinful Messiah series, the editor wrote an editorial, and he said, something needs to be done. He knew the rape was coming. Scholarship has shown that. So he already knew that the ATF rape was coming when he wrote that editorial. But what he was referring to was David's sexual activities with underage girls. So that's what he was referring to.
That's what he was building it on. But as far as getting the facts on it, you know what I'm saying? It's like people say, oh, they got all these guns. Who was telling them that? The people they were interviewing hadn't been around for 8 or 9 months. You know, David Block, what's his name, Mark Bro, different ones, former members that had left. Everybody that leaves anything, whether it's a job or a neighborhood, and people say, oh, I thought you were working at such and such a place. Oh no, that was a terrible place. I had to get out of there. They're trying to justify their reason for no longer still being there, a loyal employee or whatever. But they make the business look bad, or the bosses look bad, or whatever. And they're the poor person that's been basically forced out, you see. But that's not necessarily always the case.